Alright, so this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Well, alright, I know usually I'm taking these in the middle of my bedroom, so that is a forum. Portable tech, it's a wonderful thing. So yeah, this is where I usually come out to do most of my videos and, actually do things. So let's pick up where I left off last night. Wait, where I left off last night? Oh yes, the wonderful discussion of gender identities, and in this case, how about bi erasure? I love that. So right, well, in this case, I think we'd be qualifying it more as Enby Erasure. It would be bi erasure if we were talking about biopenting. You can also call it pan erasure, but we all know what we're talking about now, don't we? Oh yes, and I'm quite comfortable doing this. That should tell you a lot. So, alright, Enby Erasure is the erasure of non-binary identities inside the gender variant community. So, why is that so important? Well, let's consider this. You have a society which basically puts most genders into two boxes. Then it ostracizes anyone who doesn't fit in those boxes exactly. It's much nicer to walk on the sand. A lot nicer. Anyway, so, right. Okay, so you get anything that doesn't fall in neatly to the binary categories of male or female, you get erased. And that's by society. And the reason for that is if you don't neatly fall into one or the other, you basically get erased. It's the way to protect gender oppression. Oh, yes, that word. Yeah, it sort of sneaks in there and works its way through the system. Oh, welcome to the gender matrix. So, why is it so important to defend gender diversity then? And here's the secret why. Gender diversity represents the greatest amount of transgenderism. Whether you are talking about non-binary identities or you are talking about non-passable binary identities, it's all the same to the system. And when people plug into the system, observe you do not comply with the binary status quo, guess what? You are penalized. And that penalization is what we call binary oppression. It's how the two cisgender basically oppress every other gender, whether they appear cis-normative or not. If you step slightly out of the box, a shorter haircut than a woman's supposed to have, a deeper voice, or a slightly raspier voice, you are automatically penalized. You'll see this in any number of ways. But of course, there are some ways which are more violent than others. Ones that should concern us the most. I mean, we hear about these all the time. The murders, the murders the invalidations by one's family and the beatings or attacks, and even hear about rapes of not only trans women, but trans feminine identities. In other words, any non-binary that either expresses intentionally or unintentionally what is considered feminine qualities. So, yeah, there you go. Nice. And if that doesn't clearly show you where all this is heading, I don't know what will, quite frankly. So why is this so important? Well, the discussion lately has turned to how we should divide up this community for safety of a few identities here and there. And it is not consistent with what we ought to be doing. Because quite honestly, that sort of division not only knocks us down, it knocks us out politically. Hold on 1 second. God, I hate reaching. I gotta have there a mint. A mint. I gotta talk to you people, so I need a mint. So I have to go in my purse. Right, so basically, what it comes down to is this. Non-binary identities are the best representation of us in the sense that through them we get the... If we can defend our non-binary friends, by the way, which I'm included, although I haven't stated it quite clearly in other videos, I feel I should in this one. So I will. I am, well, obviously I keep stating I'm a trans woman, so I have to be pretty close. So I am a trans feminine new choice, which is basically a neuter gender, which is harder to explain than the binary. But for all intents and purposes, it means that even though I have strong inclinations to feminine, I am not, quote unquote, oh, how should I put this? I'm not going to go out and buy 10 dozen Barbies. Let's put it that way. And neither should any woman, but it's kind of tricky, actually. But it's classical identity. The three classical identities are two binary and one non-binary, which was always assumed a neutral gender. But in actuality, is more a non-confined, non-compliant identity that can either be completely non-compliant or veer off to one of the known gender identities, whether it's in the binary or not. So, for example, I am trans feminine new choice, which means I am non-compliant, push over to the side of a trans woman. So basically, in a world which only allowed two, I'd be quite comfortable transitioning to the feminine side, and I'd have no problem with staying in that binary. Erase other parts of my identity, which are just as significant. And here's why. A trans woman identity is a simple binary, and in completely immersing yourself in it, you sort of lose any other hope for owning other parts of other identities. And that's hard to explain. In new choice, being non-binary, it means I do push over um, into the spectrum of a trans woman, of course, but I'm not necessarily compliant there. I'm not just like a strict, straightforward arrow in that one box, and that frees me up. Sort of correlate to other identities, which may not even necessarily be trans in that matter of fact. And so it frees me up for a lot more expression and so forth. So that's significant. In itself, and by erasing that, you erase my, how should I put this? You erase my social aspects. I guess is the best way to put it. And characteristics, and because I'm trying to put this into simple words, but honestly, these identities are quite complex, and you don't actually know what they are till you either do a whole bunch of or until you yourself are one of them. And that's true for trans women. I mean, everyone takes it to its simplest form, which is fine, but it is, and never will be, just its simplest form. It is quite a complex form at that. One may ask, why am I walking on this disgusting beach? My answer is, it's the best beach around right now. And quite frankly, I walked 4.5 miles to get here so I can talk to you. And I like the fresh air, and it's better for me than the gym, and it's probably better for all of us, but you people aren't going to make your way out here, are you? So, right. Trans new choice. That's an interesting way of putting that I'm a non-compliant gender, meaning I'm not bound to simplicities or mannerisms or other things that are constructed within a straightforward binary system. The trans feminine, though, means my styles, my nuances, my mannerisms, my movements, etc., etc., all within the range, or at least are desired within the range of the feminine spectrum, or in the spectrum of the trans woman. So just imagine me as sort of, if you'd like, a gender fluid trans woman. I'm a trans woman for all intents, or at least pushed that way. I have the mannerisms, I have the desires to be there. I'm going through the same transition pretty much. There's only two main differences. My gender, in as far as the identity is not a stringent compliancy and can actually range. Hence, just like the other thing is, in the transition, I have far more options than those who are strict trans women. The most notable being the surgeries allotted. See, trans women are always expected to be women in the strictest form. Never about that. However, as trans new choice, I don't have the same compliancy requirements. So what basically ends up happening over the long run is even in surgeries, well, for one, new choice aren't required to grow breasts. So, even though we take estrogen, we can have mastectomies to remove those if we so please. I probably won't because it's not desire. The other part of new choice is the surgeries, which is a very important thing to understand. New choice surgeries include whatever the binaries include. So in other words, if I'm a woman, I could have one hung there. If I'm a man, I can have a vagina. There's a third option on there that's actually quite interesting to discuss. The new choice surgery, or the total new choice, or whatever you want to call it, is actually the removal of the genital, thus leaving only the urethra to pee through. So basically you got a pee hole and that's it. Why, you should ask? Well, in true no choices, it's seen as a more viable option for life, obviously. If you can walk through this life completely genderless, why would you want anything down there? And a lot of people are like, oh. And let me assure you of something. Along with vaginoplasty, I have actually considered surgery. Very seriously, in fact. My desired effect on there, though, that requires the vaginoplasty. So that's what I'm going for. And in all honesty, what the hell? That's what I want. Nothing you can do. But, some new choice see it differently. And that, in and of itself, is part of what makes non-binary quite interesting and quite complex. Now, in classical transsexualism, you have absolutely no other non-binary identities. So that's why new choice is so important, because it represents not just one identity, but a spectrum, which doesn't exist in simple F binaries. Hence, the expressions you either have an NTF, an FTM, or you can have either an FTN or an F, which is a transition to new choicehood. Isn't that wonderful? And we're still on the beach. I love walking this beach. It can be quite relaxing. And after walking all this, just to go ahead and go in a pool is rather nice, which is where I'm going after this. Yes, I have an indoor pool to go to. My gym has a pool, and they're open till 11 o'clock tonight, motherfuckers. Okay, I'll bleep that out. Yeah. Anyway, right. So here's where the interesting thing comes in. Why we are mostly stuck in the idea of the fact that, okay, there really can't be a new choice, Abby, and you're not really a new choice. You have a name that's distinctly feminine. You have, I said trans feminine for a reason. People miss that whole spectrum thing. It's incredible how they miss it. It's like, really, people need to be hit on the head with this. Bonk. Alright, so, yeah. But defense of those non-binaries are majorly important. Now, in my particular identity, I'm not really in the percent that would probably be endangered, except in rare instances. So, for me to worry about it is to tell you I'm actually thinking outside myself. And here is why. I know a good amount of you, and I know some of you get dysphoria from hearing this. So I'm going to say it and not point fingers. But some of you would have, I mean, you'll get respect from people, but, and I love you dearly, but some of you would have hard times out there, as much as some of the cis women who have been clocked recently. Now, in a world binaries, that's only to be expected, because even if you were a cis woman, there's always a good chance that you will be clocked for being trans. Why? Well, that's just the way the world works. It's by appearances, not by factuality. And so, people will take that seemingly trans appearance, even on a cis person, and turn it into a reason to attack them. And there you go as far as that. My thing here is we have an absolute responsibility to defend non-binaries, both in the transgender community, to assure that all transgender and all gender variant people are defended. And when they are all defended, it doesn't matter whether a trans person is passable or not. Why? Because then all of a sudden, those requirements as far as survival and that become secondary. Because if non-binaries, who appear as neither, are quite welcome, then non-passables, who will also appear as out of place as non-binaries, will also be acceptable. And people will more often judge gender identity based on what the person presents to them, in the form of identification, in the form of what they tell them. And that is the most significant accomplishment by defending non-binary identities. So why I am with some of you about, okay, yes, we shouldn't be spearheading the non-binaries up there in order to really jar people's heads against them. I think honestly doing it is not the most harmful part. The fact that a non-passable person like that will innocently be murdered for no other reason than some cis dude didn't think it was cool that they would dress in a dress. Well, guess what? It's none of your beeswax. And that's the way, because quite honestly, this country has gotten too much into minding everyone else's business. And it just isn't working out. Especially for this girl / Enby. And you decide which one you want to refer me to. Alright, that sucked. I really tied my tongue up in knots with that. But you get the point. So, in non-binary identities, we defend every identity. And that is the significant point of this. We need to defend those identities more. So when we see the bearded lady, I'll be the first one to say, it's my thing to say, well, she's putting herself and possibly in jeopardy. Yeah, I'll gun for that. But no, I don't think we should. I mean, if she's going to be limited in her life because of it, it's going to be hard for her to find a relationship because of it, so be it. That's part of what her option is. But, honestly, if it's the way she wants to be, let her be. And let's actually take that image and instead of trying to roast it, let's celebrate for once. Let's stop pissing off each other and pissing on each other's territory, and let's start pissing off some cis people. Because honestly, from the way I look at it, I've seen I'm 46 going on 47. I've seen about 40 years of cis oppression. And so, in my mind, it makes sense we start really giving it to them. We don't have to accept their rules and confines. What they have to do is accept indifference and intelligent discussion and so on and so forth. And that's what we had to offer. And I think if you take anything away from this, well, it's true that not all the non-binaries exist in the same category as the strict binary transsexuals. Honestly speaking, isn't all the same fight in the end? I mean, we're going to overthrow or going to try and overthrow gender oppression. And honestly, if we take that, then we can't exactly stand there and say, well, because it's sort of like you can't. Because honestly speaking, if you do, then you're isolating yourself from a larger community, which is representative of a whole. And I think this is the benefit of the umbrella. We finally have a chance to pass all our protection under this one umbrella. And by not fighting amongst ourselves, but by stopping non-binary erasure, Enby Erasure, we go ahead and give a new how should I put this? We give a new God. We give new energy to this. We revitalize it, and we give it more meaning and more definition. And we need that. Because, like it or not, even for the small amount of non-binaries there are, which albeit there's a lot more than binary compliant transsexuals, which are in a huge minority and suffer a great amount. Well, actually, all transsexuals, whether binary or non-binary, suffer a great amount of oppression and are relatively small amounts. But in all honesty, by accepting the larger subscription of the general umbrella and pushing all our rights under that, will actually make ripples in this pond. And quite honestly, we, as compared to them, even with the inclusion of these non-binaries, which we're so like, well, most are like very upset about, um, minority. But those non-binaries increase our numbers a hell of a lot. And we need them. We need them more than ever. Because even with them on our side, we're still an awesome minority. And in a cisgendered world that continues to want to ostracize us and oppress us. And honestly, after 40 years of oppression of the cisgender kind, I'm quite. So, I think we should finally bring this movement all together, all identities, binary, non-binary, gender fluid, everything. And we should be consistent with this. Now, classic transsexuals have a problem with this, specifically the ones in the MTF and the FTM category, because they've been based off the fact that their identities are clearly market binary, which no one's identities are. I hate to put you any other way. No one has a marked binary. Standard people have a fluid binary. I mean, look. You actually see anyone who's a solid binary gender? I didn't think so. So, in that respect, um, yeah, dysphoria, and they have strong inclinations, there's no doubt, and as I am who I am, I also have similar strong inclinations and dysphoria, so I can completely understand. But it doesn't make it right to erase the rest of these identities, which I think need to be included not only for their benefit, but for as we're being killed here, and we need to resurrect this movement. So, yeah, tell me what you think.